Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. Time to hand out grades for the Longhorns in a 29-21 loss to Florida on Saturday. As grades are every Sunday, they're brought to you by Chad Markham and Allegiant Digital Marketing. We'll tell you more about Allegiant Digital Marketing here later in the show. CJ, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Grade for the quarterbacks. I didn't think Arch played terribly. I wouldn't say it was a great, tremendous performance, but it was by no means terrible. Matthew Caldwell did his job the one play he was in. So overall for quarterback, what grade are you giving the Longhorns?
Man, I'm with you. I didn't think it was a terrible showing by Arch, and I think all of the negatives came towards the end when he was pressing pretty heavily, as you need to do in the fourth quarter, down 2 scores. I give him a B-. I'm with you. I thought early on he looked pretty composed. I saw the first throw to Parker Livingston, that little 15-yard out comeback route by the sideline. I said, okay, this isn't going to be a duplicate of the Ohio State game on the road getting rattled. I was certainly, optimistic about that after the first throw. I also thought his ability to scramble, evade pressure, the eyes downfield after your left guard completely whiffs on the Wingo touchdown to find him. Then that was great. The two passes rolling out left to DeAndre Moore and Dalen McCutcheon in the fourth quarter. That's great. He's showing that he can create. He had 3 rush attempts, 15 yards or more. That's great. Mm-hmm. But there's still more that needs to be there. And there's more, I think, mentally when it comes to identifying pressure up front that he can help his offensive line with as well. But right now, a B-, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm going to go C+, and I could probably go higher. But it's about as optimistic as I could be with a C+, because I felt like we watched Arch grow up a little and grow on Saturday. Look, my one issue, and it's going to fall on Arch because he's the quarterback, but one of my major issues with this offense, CJ, is just how their lack of composure and lack of execution, end of half, end of game, 2-minute situations just – we're not good. And you can argue that lack of execution in 2-minute situations, granted, there's a ton of stuff around there, but lack of execution in 2-minute situations went a long way toward costing you the game. Now, I'm not saying it's pretty far down the list of things that we're talking about the biggest problems on Saturday. So there's that, but I'm with you. I felt like, look, when you're in that situation, when you're one-dimensional and you have to throw the ball and the opponent knows you're throwing the ball, there's only so much you can do. Arch's athleticism was basically your offense. I mean, if we're boiling it down to my bottom line thought on the offense, CJ, if it wasn't for Arch's legs, I don't know if you'd have scored any points on Saturday.
You probably don't. I mean, and look, we're going to have coaching grades at the end, Jeff, where I want that this week, because it just felt like nothing came easy for this Texas offense. And we'll talk about that with the offensive line too. And part of that, again, towards the end of the game is on Arch, making the home run throw on every single play, essentially, in that fourth quarter. But there just weren't many other options, and that's an issue.
The where the offense is right now reminds me a lot of where the offense was Tom Herman's first year. Specifically, like when you watch Sam and you're like, okay, there's something there. Like you've got something. We may not see it this year, but you've got something. But there's so many issues around the quarterback that it's hard to just say, hey, changing quarterbacks would be the answer, which I don't think is the answer at this point. So you're going B- for quarterbacks. I'm going C+ for quarterbacks. CJ, I don't know if you remember when Arch had the really bad game against UTEP, I wanted to give the receivers an incomplete because I was like, I don't know how you grade them. That's almost how I feel about the running back group. I don't know if you can really give them a grade, but I'll let you go first. Take your best shot.
They showed up. So it's like taking the SAT and you put like your name on the Scantron, but you don't fill out any of the questions. What do you get a grade, right? It's a failing grade. I guess that's what I have to give them by default. Yeah. I thought Sark might look to the running back pass game, get them involved in the pass game. 3 receptions, go for about 26 yards, but there was nothing there. Texas abandoned the run so quickly. I thought maybe when we look back at the film, Jeff, we'll see maybe Trey Wisner was too quick to bounce outside on a few runs, but yeah, there really wasn't anything. I have to give him an F.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a D just because I don't know if there's enough material there, CJ, for me to give them an F.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I mean, look, that group didn't do anything to really help themselves. I mean, the longest rushing attempt you had by the running backs was a 6-yard run by Trey Wisner. We saw some 2-back stuff with Ryan Niblett, but it was pretty negligible in terms of the impact it had on the offense. Christian Clark, I do credit him, making that one reception on a low throw on kind of a throwback screen-ish type play and actually turning that into a 9-yard gain. So maybe that one play is why. And I'll give you, there was a throw Arch made in the fourth quarter on one of those drives where Trey Wisner did have a really good, I think it was the throw to DeAndre Moore where Wisner had a really good blitz pickup to finish off a block.
It was probably right after a couple sacks allowed by Wisner and Christian Clark. The drive.
Yeah, so I'll go D, and I'm probably being generous, but there's no sense in beating the dead horse on the running backs. Let's go to the receivers. Just a heads up, horns up, whatever, shout out, however you want to put it, to Parker Livingston, because I don't know how the heck he held onto that football, that shot he took in the leg. I was for sure like, this is going to be bad. CJ, you were at the game. You're in Gainesville. What was the word on him after the game with that knee, lower leg situation?
Yeah, Sark said post-game that he went through x-rays. They did some testing on him. Everything came back clear. I believe he went back into the game and tried to give it back a go in the second half. So it doesn't appear to be anything internally in the knee, joint-wise. It also appears that it might just be a deep bone bruise, and fingers crossed, let's hope it's nothing too serious, but it doesn't appear that'll be anything that he will miss time for, Jeff.
So when we group the wide receivers and the tight ends together, I think I'm going to give this group a B-. Other than there was one contested catch situation where Ryan Wingo probably needs to make that play on a ball down the sideline. Other than that, CJ, I thought for the most part, if the ball was in their area, they made plays. And if nothing else, Livingston, that one play is going to elevate this group into B- territory for me.
Yeah, B- for me as well. Look, I think we also need to say, hey, there's a great call by Sark on the double pass that needed to be converted. You ended up punting there. That probably puts it in a B+ area. But look, you got to complete that pass. That's a walk-in touchdown in which you just cannot move the football. We've talked about in SEC games on the road. Any and all points are welcomed. It doesn't matter how you get them. That was a free 7 that didn't get converted. But I'm with you. I think Emmett Mosley, finally getting to see him in action was a bright spot. One of the few, but ultimately you saw what kind of threat he could be in the intermediate to deep range. That is a plus from tonight. So B- for me entirely, but optimistic about Mosley on the field with Livingston, Wingo, and more.
And again, kind of like he did last week, Dalen McCutcheon, 1 target, 1 catch, 26 yards, had a really big play late in the fourth quarter. So shout out to the freshman. All right, CJ, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Man, the offensive line, I'll let you go first.
That was terrible. That was an F minus. Throw every F you could put on it. It doesn't matter how many of those sacks were allowed on Arch. How many of them were because of tight ends or running backs? It doesn't matter. Florida came into this game with 3 sacks. In 4 games, they had 3 sacks. They had 6 tonight. They probably should have had 9, and 9 probably were looked at as sacks. 3 of which Arch gained about an inch, so it was technically a rush attempt. It doesn't matter for me. That's bad, right? It doesn't. But you go on the swamp, you go on the road to play a front 7, and you run the ball for 14 yards on 11 attempts. You bench your left guard. It doesn't matter. The whole unit needs to be broken down from the bottom up. And look, January 2nd, Jeff set the timer right now. Texas will be active in the portal. There's no way Sarkisian or Flood will be successful at Texas moving forward if they continue this approach of, hey, we're good with what we got, because you're good right now is dog shit. It just quite frankly is. And I don't know how successful Texas will be the remainder of the year with this unit, but if Texas wants to be competitive moving forward, it has to have some sort of influx of talent moving forward, because this unit is not helping itself. And this is 2 years in a row, Jeff.
Yeah, I have been trying to see just trying to look at it from a positive standpoint with the offensive line. I've been hopeful that I've seen progress and seeing some things where you're starting to get close. Uh, this was, and look, you're playing a good defensive front. I mean, the sack numbers weren't there. We know, like, Florida's got pieces, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about that more so when we talk about the Texas defense. But Florida's
They're
got
also
pieces.
banged up coming in this game too.
Right. But this was a step back, the likes of which I don't know that we could have foreseen the kind of step back that this was. And I applaud the effort. I don't think guys quit, but the execution just flat, straight up was not there. It would be disingenuous to the audience if I gave it anything but an F. So, CJ, your grade for the offense overall is what?
I guess a D-. I mean, it should be an F. You had 2 weeks to prepare for Florida. You had 2 weeks, and you come out looking that bad. And again, I'm going to talk about this when we get to coaching, Jeff, but there's no excuse on either side of the football to be that bad in the trenches, given you had 2 weeks to prepare for Florida. And I was talking to some Florida folks up in the press box. Florida wasn't running anything outrageously different up front. Mm-hmm. This is exactly what they did against LSU and Miami and South Florida, all games that they lost, all games in which they couldn't create pressure in the backfield for tackles for loss or sacks, and yet it felt like every single play someone was right back there making that play. The other thing I wanted to mention on the offensive line, it's interesting that 5 games in, now you get a look at Nick Brooks. And I wonder if that spot ever is given back. I would like to think not.
No, and at this point, I mean, look, it is. We'll call it what it is. It was probably a miscalculation by Kyle Flood and Sark trying to figure out, hey, what is our best 5? Is this it? I think it's pretty clear at this point, the mix of 5 as it was through the first 5 games. Your offense is not going to turn the corner if that's the 5. I mean, at this point, and I'll say this too, for the penalties, it's hard for me to just throw Nick Brooks under the bus for the back-to-back false starts on the drive where, and like you said, CJ, it compounds it because you're in 2nd and 19. I think at that point, Arch just has to throw a bomb down the field. And I mean, you're hoping, hey, it's either a catch or a DPI. And if it's an interception, we'll just, play defense, whatever. Yeah. It's hard for me to fault Nick Brooks because he just hasn't played. And then to throw him into that environment to see if he's going to sink or swim is not ideal, but at least now, hopefully now you can get him some practice reps and get him ready to go for Oklahoma and see if that's the change or maybe more personnel decisions. But CJ, I've got to give, probably D- for the offense. And the only reason that it's not an F for me is the select few plays we saw from the receiver position.
Yeah.
And the plays Arch, man. I want to stay on Arch for a minute because I think in the heat of the moment, there was some talk. Well, look how Matthew Caldwell stood in there and made that 26-yard completion when the one play Arch had to come out. Should you have just stayed with Matthew Caldwell? This offense isn't going to hit its ceiling with Matthew Caldwell. Whatever that ceiling is, it's not going to be with Matthew Caldwell. And, for better or worse, you're riding with Arch. And again, I saw some things that I'm hopeful about. There's obviously some things that you can tell that's an inexperienced quarterback, and 2-minute, that's on everybody, even though the blame's going to fall on Arch, which, hey, that's the nature of the beast. I just, I'm not, just for better or worse, CJ, I'm not ready to give up on Arch. Not giving up on 16.
Yeah, I'm not either. And again, I thought he looked good, Jeff, when there was a clean pocket in front of him. And I did. And I wonder, I had this pointed out to me afterward on the drive back to Ocala. Where were the quick screens? We heard all off season. Emmett Mosley getting back in the lineup. That's great for the perimeter block. I didn't see any perimeter throws. I didn't see anything quick to a Ryan Niblett who, look, I think that experiment should end as well. But, those quick screens to somebody that can get and create after the catch. Texas and Sark made it so difficult on themselves, and that blame goes straight to the quarterback and the offensive line. It's unfair, but that's how it is.
No, you're right. To your point, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, other than the touchdown pass to Trey Wisner, didn't see a whole lot of, hey, if your offensive line's dealing with pressure, give them a little bit of margin for error and, get your quarterback on the move. You take advantage of his legs rather than just hoping he can avoid pressure and make a play. So just nothing clicked. Nothing worked for Texas offensively on Saturday, like I said, except for a few clutch plays by Arch using his legs to extend plays and a couple of the plays from the receivers. CJ, let's go to the Texas defense. Start with the Texas D-line. And, it's bleak. The outlook is bleak on offense. I'm disappointed because I know the Texas defensive line is better than what they put on paper and what the eye test showed on Saturday against Florida. And to your point, Florida didn't do anything fancy. It was just simple zone runs, and they just caved in the front side and were getting yards. And Jaden Baugh is one of the better backs in this league. He's tough to bring down. CJ, what's your grade for the Texas D-line?
Yeah, I wish I could give them a grade for the first half and the second half. Second half, they looked pretty good, right?
Yeah.
They only allowed 2.9 yards per carry. First half, I think it was north of 5. But look, you play one game, and you're going to be judged for one game. So for that reason, it's going to be about a D+, C-. This was, again, a team that Miami had great success creating pressure. Ruben Bain was in the backfield the entire time. I thought Colin Simmons actually had he disrupted an entire drive. He had 3 straight tackles for loss on runs straight to him. So I got to tip my cap there, but there has to be more usage of an Anthony Hill blitzing the quarterback, Trey Moore got stuck on run blocks pretty consistently in that first half. It felt like when 8 was on the field, that's exactly where Florida was going. I have to give them about a D+. That was just, again, you have 2 weeks to prepare, and Florida just stomped it down your throat to begin the game, all running the football, which should be your strength given what you acquired out of the portal. It just wasn't enough. No sacks in another big game. You can't keep playing JV players to pad stats here. You're going to have to do it when these guys matter, when these games matter, and they haven't been able to do that this year.
Yeah, I'm going to give the D-line a D because my bar is pretty high for that group. And again, I think they're much better than the product they put on the field on Saturday. But, again, that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It was really bad in the first half. That's probably where it evens out, CJ. I think the first half was an F, and the second half was probably like a B-. You probably wish for a few more splash plays, but probably evens out, like you said, like a D+, C- somewhere in there. So I'll give them a D. Before we move on, continue talking about the defense, let's say about our sponsor for our grades every Sunday here on Texas Football. That is Allegiant Digital Marketing. Did you know that among the top 9 challenges business owners face, the most difficult ones include finding customers, increasing brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation? What if I could point you to a local homegrown agency here in Austin that could solve those problems for your business once and for all? For over 25 years, Allegiant Digital Marketing founder and CEO Chad Markham is a UT grad and instructor of the Digital Marketing Bootcamp here at UT Austin, has helped thousands of businesses overcome these challenges. Take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special and save up to $2,500 in advertising. Visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball. Again, that's allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball to learn more today. CJ, let's go to the linebackers, and kind of a mixed bag for this group. Anthony Smith when Texas needed a play to be made, man, Anthony Smith came through with that forced fumble and Ant Hill getting the fumble recovery. And you know what? Props to the offense for scoring off of that drive, because that's maybe in all this muck, CJ, maybe the best example of complementary football we've seen this year. Defense forces a turnover, offense gets a reasonably short field and scores. Yep. Again, that's to quote Emmitt Smith about 20 years ago with the Cowboys, that's the diamond amongst trash that we're sorting through here. What's your grade for the linebackers?
I actually thought the linebackers played well. Now, again, there were some run fits that maybe that didn't fit right away. I'll give them a B. But Anthony Smith, that play was fantastic. I thought Anthony Smith was the best player on the field for the Longhorns, and that's even with Anthony Hill having 14 tackles on Saturday. That's 6 more than anybody else. That just kind of gives you an idea, Jeff, of just how leaky that defensive line was when it came to getting Jaden Baugh in the Florida run game on the ground. But I'll give him a B. I did think Anthony Hill quietly had a really good game. There wasn't the splashy big play or big hit that I know a lot of folks are going to look at and say, where's zero? Well, he was cleaning up the mess that was created in front of him. And again, but that's the one thing, and it's going to lump Trey Moore into it. He's got to be better shedding blocks. Right now, that is something that teams are targeting him with. B-. We'll drop it to a B-.
Yeah, I'll go with you on B-. That's fair. I could say the same thing about Anthony Hill that I said during the game in the game thread over on Texas Football about Arch. And we said, well, why is Arch taking forever to hold on the ball? Why is he slow processing? I'm like, well, you probably have problems processing if the defensive tackle's in your lap, after you finish your drop. I mean, if you're Anthony Hill, yeah, it's tough to make a splash play when you're having to fight off blocks the entire game. So yeah, I'll give him a B-. If nothing else. Levitating it from average to above average is the one play Ty Anthony Smith made. Ty Anthony Smith, by the way, 1.5 tackles for loss in this game too. And again, anytime you have 14 tackles at the linebacker position in the SEC, you're playing your tail off. So yeah. I'm not going to dock Anthony Hill for that. CJ, I do think though, when we talk about the splash plays for PK, I think you've got to weaponize Anthony Hill. And I know it's tough if you can't stop the run. You have to earn the right to rush the passer, and Texas didn't do that on Saturday. But you got to weaponize Anthony Hill. You've got a unique defender, one of the most unique box defenders in the country, and you really haven't turned him loose yet.
No, and you need to. We could talk about his pass win rate. I know you and Rod have all the numbers, but this is one of the best weapons in college football, and I've yet to see him line up at the edge or really over a guard or a center and feel like his impact has been felt rushing the passer. And that shouldn't be the case 5 weeks into the season with 2 losses under your belt already.
All right, CJ, let's go to the secondary. No Malik Muhammad on Saturday. And you could tell there were problems because at one point I'm like, man, I'm losing count of how many different guys are coming in the game at corner. Like we saw Cade Phillips in the first half, which I didn't think we'd see. And that's no disrespect to Cade Phillips, but you could tell Mark Orfeh and Dwayne Akina and PK, they're just looking for answers at some point. CJ, what grade would you give the secondary in this game?
I think it's a D. Again, this was a team, and look, Dallas Wilson's emergence for that Florida team, I think it made a world of difference. I do. But you have to be prepared for that, right? He was a stud coming out of high school. He lit up the spring game. If that was a guy Texas wasn't prepared for, then I don't know what to tell you. Because you, myself, everybody at On Texas Football sat here all week saying, that's a good player. And if folks in the facility didn't have that, circled either, then I don't know what to say. But look, again, defensively in the second half, you played very well. Nothing was really there except for the big play. Grayson Littleton, it looked like he kind of backed off because he didn't want to draw a DPI. Instead, a tough catch is made for 60 yards, 3 points is added, and then right after that, Jelani McDonald, Michael Taft had a chance to knock out Dallas Wilson by the goal line. He does not make it after pushing, or at least making Kobe Black look like he didn't have a place on the field next to him for a big play. It was a tough day for the secondary, and it started earlier on, right? I thought early on Napier did a great job of not making DJ Lagway force anything. They had a lot of underneaths, a lot of slants, a lot of drags. It was easy pickings for him. But at the end of it, I was sitting there saying, man, DJ's making some pretty easy throws vertically down the field, and it's because guys are separated from one another. So it was a pretty bad day, probably the worst of the year for the Longhorns secondary.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Taft did have an interception, but I'm with you. I'm gonna give him a D. And I think that bleeds into the offense overall. And I don't know where you thought, CJ, but Jerry and I were both in agreement during the watch with us. Didn't like the fact that they were playing off coverage early. Didn't like the fact that they let a struggling quarterback get into a rhythm and gain some confidence. And that just kind of built on itself as DJ Lagway's outing went on. I thought Billy Napier called a really good first few series, so actually taking advantage of some mesh concepts in the middle of the field, kind of got the defensive backs crossed up. CJ, what would be your overall grade for the defense for this one?
A D. It was a failing day for the defense. It was. This was a team that hadn't broken 20 against a team outside of Long Island University, Jeff, and you almost put 30 or 27 on you. I don't know what the total yardage was, but at one point it was pushing close to 450. Again, this was an abysmal showing from Florida for the first month of the season. They come back out and they look like a Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma offense, and that shouldn't be the case.
So coming into the game, Texas had allowed 5 rushing attempts of 10 or more yards through the first 4 games. Florida had 5 in the first half.
Yeah.
And that's an offense that only had 13 10-plus yard runs through their first 4 games. Only Auburn had fewer 20-plus yard gains through the air than Florida among SEC offenses going into Saturday. Florida had 10 through the first 4 games. They had 4 on Saturday. We talked about it a lot. DJ Lagway was the worst deep ball throwing quarterback in the country. Dallas Wilson did make a huge difference, but just not pretty anyway you slice it. I'm with you. I'll go with a C minus, just because again, Ty Anthony Smith's fumble recovery, that to me is going to elevate this grade. And the run defense was better in the second half. Again, I just want to get this on the table because we haven't yet. I've mentioned a few times. Did Billy Napier's clock management at the end of that game make any sense?
I was very confused by that. The clock was stopped regardless, and I thought it would keep going with 25 seconds left on the game clock whenever they whistled it in and they made this substitution to get the tight end out off the field. Apparently, it wouldn't have started again. That was the conversation that we had, and then Napier called the timeout to get the tight end back onto the field so he could be a part of the play. But I don't know. It didn't make sense to me at the time, and I don't think the explanation made sense to me now. It feels like calling a timeout there regardless was the worst possible thing you could have done.
100%. Yeah. If Texas manages to score and send that game to overtime and wins, I don't think Billy Napier makes it out of the press conference, CJ, because that would be an all-time blunder. But Florida managed to hold on. So we given our grades for the offense, the defense. Real quick with the special teams.
I don't have another hat, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 bright spots. The opening kickoff, you pin them deep. It was a good kickoff by Will Stone into the corner of the end zone. You get the tackle around the 16, 17-yard line. That's exactly what you want to do. And then I thought Jeff Banks dialed up a really smart kick as Florida has their hands unit on the field with about 3.5 minutes left. Texas had just scored to make it 29-21. 10 men inside the first 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, basically on the receiving side, and they give a little pooch squib to the back corner of the field. Instead, the ball carrier doesn't field it cleanly. Instead, lets it roll all the way down to the 5. That was perfect, very well executed. If you could create a 3-and-out right there, Jeff, and you force Florida to punt that football after 3 plays without creating a first down, they're punting at best, at their own 14-yard line, and that gives Texas the ball with about a minute or so left around midfield. That was very well executed.
Yep.
Everything else on the flip side, it might have just erased everything that I just talked about. That wasn't great.
Yeah, especially the block punt. I mean, that was just you just got out executed on that deal, and you gave up 2 points. I don't know. I don't even know what kind of grade you want to give the special team, CJ. I mean, it probably evens out to about a C, which to me, if you're grading out a C, it was a wash. Mm-hmm. You weren't a detriment to your team, but you didn't do enough to help the cause to win. You were just kind of evened out to an average performance. That's what I would say for the special teams.
Yeah, I'm probably a little harder, C minus. Is just nothing extraordinary there.
Yeah, I will say Jack Bomeister did pin a couple of punts. They were
close. Man, they were close.
Yeah, a couple of issues with the gunners and downing punts and whatnot, but that was just CJ. It was a day where not a lot clicked for Texas in the way the Longhorns needed it to. Let's go with you want to go coaching grades.
Yeah,
so I'll give you the floor for this one, because typically when we do grades, we don't assign coaching grades, but I'll give you the floor here.
Let's see. You have 2 full weeks to go or to prepare for Florida. You score 7 points in the first half. You allow 17. Oh, you also have a blocked punt in the mix as well. All 3 phases, it's an F on the coaching side of things. It should not take much for you to run for 15 yards, Jeff. I know that this is the SEC. I know that there's talent everywhere. I know that playing in a loud environment is tough. If you can't run for 15 yards with your running game, I don't know what else to tell you. This is a disaster of a running game. It's a disaster of an offensive line. It shouldn't be this way 5 years into this regime, right? It just shouldn't be that way. But it's more than that, right? Texas had a chance late in that game to put some drives together because Florida gave them seemingly every opportunity in the fourth quarter to get back into this game. And Texas did, right? They did somehow, some way. Yet, if you're Steve Sarkisian, we're calling a home run shot on every single play. It looked like Texas was trying to get 16 points on one play, 10 straight plays in that fourth quarter. There wasn't a single quick out. There wasn't a single catch the ball and run. There wasn't any opportunities there for the Texas offense to create after the catch, unless it was Arch Manning creating drawing time and scramble drilling. That shouldn't be the case. Again, I can't really sit here and say, what did you expect from a Florida offense who knows that their quarterback hasn't been good this year? Then, hey, they're going to come out and try to run the football so they don't have to rely on their quarterback. And yet it took 2.5 or really 2 quarters for Texas to figure that out and make the adjustments. It just I was bewildered in the box that Texas stayed in a 2-high shell with 4 down offensive linemen. And if Florida would go 2 by 2, there'd be 1 guy in the box. And guess what? It'd be a run for 8 yards. It didn't make sense to me. I know I'm not a coach. I know I don't have that expertise behind me, but just having watched a lot of football and knowing the strengths of the Florida team, it just didn't quite click with me. So maybe you saw it differently from the TV side. I just sat there and said, did no one watch tape? Did no one have a game plan for this team at all? Because whatever happened, it sure looked like, some dog doo-doo in that first half.
Yeah, in terms of game flow, reminded me a little bit of the Arizona State game in the Peach Bowl, where if you look at it, you didn't run it well at all. You didn't really stop the run that well at all.
On the field a lot.
Yeah. And you're kind of just waiting for somebody to make that. That was the thing I didn't get, CJ, just the lack of, and I'm not going to say there was a lack of effort or heart or any of that, quite frankly, any of that crap. I don't believe that teams want it more or any of that stuff. It just drives me nuts. But it really seemed like the antithesis of what you and I heard on Monday, which was, hey, we know Florida's got athletes. We know they can play. Like, we respect them as a team. One team showed up for a football game. Then another team showed up for a fist fight.
Yeah.
Like, we are fighting for our coach's life. And that's how Florida came out and played. And I think Texas, for most of the first half, CJ, just felt like they're staggering and trying to get their footing. Even then, it still comes down to your point, I think, where you're talking about coaching, 10 penalties for 70 yards. This is still an undisciplined football team until proven otherwise. Offensively, you're really bad on third down. You're 3 for 11 on third down. You're not very good end of half, end of game. Those are critical situations where you need to execute. Defensively, the times where you really did need to get stops, and maybe that's just an accumulation of being on the field as much as they were. You couldn't get stops. And like you said, the special teams, everything you did that was good got canceled out because the bad stuff you did was so bad.
Right.
So it probably comes out to like somewhere like a D type game. And look, we knew Florida was talented. We knew they had pieces. We talked about that all week. We said, hey, we just hope this isn't the week where it happens and they put it together. Well, this was the week where they put it together, and Texas just could not come up with answers on the fly.
Yeah, it's tough to sit there, reflect, and say the better coach on a given Saturday was Billy Napier. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Texas in every phase, every way imaginable lost that football game on Saturday.
Yeah.
We'll turn the page, get ready for OU. Hey, seen weird stuff happen in that game. I'm not going to make any wholesale judgments one way or the other on that game. I've been doing this too long, but CJ, it's pretty clear. I'll leave our grades with this. The defensive issues, I'm going to give the defense the benefit of the doubt that with a better game plan, they can put a better product on the field against Oklahoma. I just don't know where you go right now offensively. And other than changing personnel in some spots, I don't really know. And maybe getting CJ Baxter back, but I think this is beyond a couple personnel.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. You could have Walter Payton in the backfield. If they're getting guys 3 or 4 yards deep, it just doesn't matter. The offensive line has to figure it out.
Some way, shape, or form, they got to do it. CJ, thanks for the knowledge and expertise as always. Safe travels coming home. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to Chad Markham and Allegiant Digital Marketing for sponsoring it. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, get over to the site right now and become an OTFOG by using the promo code OTFOG when you sign up. That'll get you 1 year of access for $39.95. Also, make sure you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way you're not missing anything before, during, and after every Texas game this season, whether it's here on the channel or on the site. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em.
Hook 'em.